What if the cross was never meant to be seen only with earthly eyes? What if the blood, the nails, the agony were just the surface of something far greater, far more terrifying, and far more victorious than we've dared to imagine? You see, while men mocked and soldiers gambled at his feet, something else was happening, something the physical world couldn't comprehend. In an invisible realm, a war broke out. Not a war of swords or spears, but of power, dominion, and eternal consequence. Heaven was not silent. Hell was not still. Angels held their breath, and demons shrieked in terror, because they knew this wasn't just the death of a man. It was the unraveling of a curse, the striking of a fatal blow to darkness. We've heard the story of the crucifixion told through human pain, but have we stopped to wonder what the spirit realm saw? As Jesus hung between two thieves, the heavens were watching. As his heart slowed and the sky grew dark, hell was trembling. The veil wasn't just torn in the temple. It was ripped in the fabric of reality. This wasn't simply a moment in history. It was eternity itself breaking into time. A divine invasion. A cosmic rescue. And the enemy never saw it coming. Stay with me to the end, because what you'll hear today could shift not only how you see the cross, but how you understand your own spiritual battle. There is more to this than we've been told. Much more. The world saw a man, bruised and bleeding, barely recognizable, dragged through dirt and nailed to wood. The crowd jeered. The soldiers laughed. His friends wept from a distance, unsure if hope had died right in front of them. From an earthly view, it looked like utter defeat, broken body, shattered dreams, a ministry crushed by the brutality of Rome and the betrayal of his own. Blood soaked the ground. The sky turned dark, and for a moment, it felt like evil had won. But what if that's only what we could see with our eyes? What if behind the veil of flesh and time, something sacred was happening? A transaction so powerful, it could not be stopped, even by death. Because in the realm of heaven, this was no tragedy. It was triumph. The veil in the temple didn't just tear as a symbol. It tore because access to God had just been made possible. That curtain that once said keep out, now said come in. In that very moment, the distance between man and God collapsed. Angels leaned in. Heaven stood in awe. Jesus' last words, "It is finished," were not the sigh of a dying man. They were a cosmic announcement. Not weakness, but a warrior's cry. Not the end, but the beginning of everything new. The cross wasn't where the story closed. It was where it truly opened. This was not the collapse of a kingdom. It was the activation of one. A holy uprising had begun. When Jesus breathed his last, the world grew silent. The earth shook, and for a moment, it seemed all had ended. But while his body lay still, his spirit moved with divine intention. This wasn't a moment of retreat. It was the beginning of a sacred confrontation. The scriptures whisper something powerful in Ephesians and 1 Peter, that he descended, not as a victim, but as a king with unfinished business. He entered the realm of the dead, what the ancients called Sheol or Hades. It was not a place of rest, but of silence, waiting, and sorrow. A place where souls lingered in separation. And into that darkness he came, not with chains on his wrists, but with fire in his eyes. Hell didn't expect this. The enemy believed the cross was the victory blow. Demons rejoiced, thinking they had crushed the light. But suddenly, in their own domain, the light stepped in. Imagine it, the very gates of death beginning to tremble. The Prince of Peace walking through the shadows, not to suffer, but to conquer. Every lie, every fear, every chain of bondage was about to be shattered, not in heaven, but right in the heart of the enemy's camp. This wasn't Jesus defeated. This was Jesus on a rescue mission, moving through the darkness with heaven's authority. The enemy thought it was over, but it had only just begun. Jesus didn't descend to Hades to be a prisoner. He descended to take back what was rightfully his. The moment he entered that realm, he wasn't simply visiting the dead. He was setting captives free. Think about that. For thousands of years, the faithful had waited, their spirits held in a place of uncertainty. longing for the promise of redemption. And there, in the darkness of death itself, Jesus stepped in, not as a victim, but as a liberator. With each step he took, the chains of those waiting for salvation began to rattle. The saints of old, those who had died in hope, their hearts now filled with the expectation that the Messiah had come, not to suffer for them, but to bring them out. His arrival was their release. In that sacred moment, Jesus took the keys of death and hell. Revelation 1 verse 18. Not only did he conquer the grave, but he now had the authority over it. The very dominion that Satan once held, the authority that kept humanity bound in sin, was now shattered. Satan, the accuser, was stripped of his legal power. The one who had brought death into the world could no longer claim dominion over it. Jesus, with his victory, fractured the kingdom of darkness forever. This wasn't just the fulfillment of prophecy. It was the activation of a divine plan that had been set in motion long before. The realm of death had been turned upside down. And now, because of what Jesus had done, no soul would ever have to fear its grip again. Saturday, the day after Jesus' crucifixion, the earth was still. The world had sunk into mourning, as the sun had set on the hope of the Savior. But in the spirit realm, it was a different story. The heavens were anything but silent. Forces of light were mobilizing, gathering in anticipation. The greatest miracle was on the verge of unfolding. Resurrection was coming. It wasn't just a return to life, it was a cosmic shift. Angels, those mighty warriors, waited for the command. They knew what was at stake. And in the realm of darkness, Satan thought he had won. But the truth was, he had no idea what was coming. The tomb, guarded with the power of men, was not secured against heaven's will. Jesus had already spoken his victory. It was only a matter of time before his body would rise. And when that stone was rolled away, it wasn't just a man walking out. It was the Son of God, glorified. The body that had been broken, the spirit that had entered death, now stood in power, undefeated and reigning. This wasn't just about Jesus returning to life. It was the beginning of a reign that would never end. This moment would shift everything, not just for Israel, but for all creation. Jesus walked out of the tomb, not as a mere man who had come back from death, but as the King who had conquered it forever. The darkness that tried to contain him had failed, and the world would never be the same. His resurrection wasn't just the restoration of life. It was the declaration of dominion, the crown placed upon his head, and the eternal defeat of all that once opposed him. This wasn't just a victory. It was a reign that would echo for all eternity. Jesus didn't just die for you. He fought for you. His death, his descent into the grave, his victory over the enemy was all for you. It was a battle, a spiritual war that you didn't have to fight alone. When Jesus declared, "It is finished," he wasn't just announcing his own victory. He was claiming victory for you, for your soul, for your future. The unseen realm may be a place of unseen battles, but the truth is, those battles are already won. Jesus fought them on your behalf, and now you stand on the winning side. The war has already been won, and in that, you can rest assured that nothing can separate you from his love. The veil that once separated you from God has been torn. You have access to the Father, and nothing in this world can block that pathway. Death, which once held such power over humanity, has lost its sting. Fear, the enemy that gripped the hearts of so many, no longer has dominion over you. You are no longer a slave to fear, because Jesus has already overcome. The spirit realm is still watching, yes, but more importantly, heaven is still fighting for you. The angels are at work. The Father's love is surrounding you, and the victory of the cross continues to echo through every moment of your life. Every battle you face, whether seen or unseen, is already covered by the victory of Christ. Rest in that truth. You are free, you are victorious, and you are loved beyond measure. As we reflect on the story of the cross, remember this: the cross was not the end, it was the invasion. It wasn't the moment of defeat, but the moment when heaven broke through into our world, shaking the very foundations of death and darkness. Jesus didn't just die. He came to claim victory over every power, every principality, and every chain that sought to bind us. His death was a stepping stone to resurrection, to reign, to a life where we no longer need to fear, because he already overcame it all. Now, as followers of Christ, we are called to live in that victory, to walk not as those defeated by the world, but as those who are more than conquerors through him. The unseen realm is real, and it's not just a thing of the past. It's happening now. Spiritual awareness is key to living a victorious life. Don't let the enemy lie to you or rob you of the truth. Live boldly, knowing that heaven fights for you, that the victory is already won. I encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss out on the deeper truths of what God is revealing. There's so much more to uncover. Remember, while the world saw death, heaven saw destiny, and that same destiny is yours. Keep your eyes on the eternal and walk in the fullness of what Jesus has already done for you.